During the 2000s, Peter Jackson was one of the biggest filmmakers in the world. Hot off the success of the first two Lord of the Rings films, he was given the opportunity to make a King Kong movie, an idea he had in the works since 1995 to 97, but couldn't because of the amount of other ape films coming out that year. Thus, he was given a humongous budget, an unlimited amount of creative control to do whatever he wanted, and what he wanted was a film truly epic in size, effects, cast, and most importantly, length. This is the longest King Kong film, and also just one of the longest blockbusters in a while, with an overbloated first hour that, thankfully, I'll be skimming through. However, once you get past that, you understand why this is called an epic blockbuster. A highly appreciative remake of the original, paying homage while adding plenty of new things to make this a worthwhile experience for anyone old enough to see it in cinemas in December of 2005. But just how worthwhile is it to delve into this 3-hour remake of a beloved classic? Well, let's find out. This is Peter Jackson's King Kong. The film begins with some apes in the 1930s. Must be pretty camera shy though, because we don't see them for long. However, we do see the state of the world for a while, and it's pretty bleak. Makes sense because it's the Great Depression. Nothing great about it though, as even our main character Andero is having trouble finding work. She's been feeling like any time she reaches out for something, fate comes along and snatches it away. However, the only thing snatching the screen is Jack Black as Carl Denham, a delightfully different character than most of his roles, and I'm glad he tried it out. Although I wouldn't say delightfully, more like just a piece of shit, but point is, it's a very different character, and I'm glad he did it. I know most people give him shit for this role, or at least at the time gave him shit, but I'm happy he did it. It's a really interesting role of a greedy, manipulative filmmaker just doing anything to save his work and get money. Not completely one note, but still an asshole. He's trying to finish his film, but since it's the Great Depression, again, the studio's got different problems, and decides to sell the footage. However, Carl leaves along with Preston, this other character, as he scams his way through a map of the Skull Island to film the movie on. It's not really explained how he got it, he just has come into possession of it. I forget if they explain it, but I don't know, it doesn't really matter. He eventually finds Anne and has a meal together, wherein he tells her about this film they're shooting and tests out his social skills.
You wouldn't happen to be a size 4 by any chance?
Yeah, not good. However, he wins her over by telling her that Jack Driscoll is writing the script for the film, whom she's a big fan of. He also appeals to the idea that fate has brought her here for this reason, and this is where she needs to be. This is happening for a reason. They get to the docking area and meet a few other characters, Hayes and Englehorn, who are both pretty awesome. However, Preston mentions to Carl that the cops have been called because of him leaving earlier. Remember, he's a scam artist. Thus, they set off early, with Jack Driscoll still in the ship. He tries leaving after turning in 15 pages, but because Carl is again a pro at scamming people, he takes just enough time to write a check for his work for the boat to take off and leave him on it. Thus, they set on a voyage of wonder and death, as Jack Driscoll gets shown his room by Choi, a friend of another character. However, it is also here where we see a bunch of chloroform bottles, meaning they may be doing more than we've heard. We also get introduced to the main star of the film being shot, Bruce, who, like I mentioned, was in Godzilla King of the Monsters, played by Kyle Chandler. We also meet Jimmy, a character who was found on the ship with a mysterious backstory we never learn. We know this because right after he's introduced, Hayes restates all this info to Jack or to Jimmy himself. Ah yes, I love getting my own mini biography said to me. However, their relationship is decent, despite not sharing that much screen time, as Jimmy shares the book he's been reading, Heart of Darkness, which also plays a role in this film, giving a good prelude to all the events that'll occur. Anne gets introduced to some others, Herb and Mike, whom she mistakes for Jack but ends up dissing him anyways, and Lumpy, Choi's friend like I said, played by Andy Serkis, who is in a movie I just covered, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Here he also plays Kong, a dual role. While Carl is helping Jack write the script, he ends up revealing the name of the island they're going to, with Jack writing it in primo early 2000s choppy slow-mo.
Mr. Baxter felt very strongly that when a man likes a woman, he must ignore her.
Wow, you know guys, that is some really great advice. Do exactly this. Ignore her, and then when she gives up, wonder why and watch 10 hours of Andrew Tate.
I take it in the ass.
Anyways, they start shooting the movie, and Anne shoots her shot with Jack, leading to a romance. During this, Lumpy reveals the story of Skull Island and the monster that lies behind it, Kong. However, Carl dismisses it as B-movie talk. Eventually, they reach Skull Island and run into some rocks, causing a flood and lots of chaos to happen. During this, Carl and some others go into the island while Hayes explains the idea of the Heart of Darkness book about how the needing to know taking over the logical warnings. Despite all the eventual chaos in this movie, this all stemmed from a genuine interest in the place and wanting to go there and explore it. Whether that ends up in its exploitation or not is what the man chooses. However, the film crew gets taken hostage by some natives who are a little problematic in how stereotypically aggressive they are, especially since besides Hayes, they're some of the only people of color in the movie and are immediately the unredeemable bad guys taking this poor, innocent white girl to Kong, who himself is an allegory for the slave trade, being someone on an island who is visited by white people, seen as inferior and primitive for the way they acted, brought on a boat by chains, forced to work for them, and when they tried to break out, immediately seen as a threat and violently killed. So, yeah, a little problematic. Back to the movie. The crew gets saved by Engelhorn, returning all but Anne back to the boat, who is taken by the natives, again, as a sacrifice. Don't know why we had the whole initially captured only to be saved, only to realize one of them is taken again instead of having her be taken in the first place and sacrificed. Would have saved a whole lot of time and made room for like the Skull Island stuff, but okay. We got all our setup out of the way and we can finally get to the good stuff, the most interesting part of the movie, the Skull Island stuff. Anne gets taken by Kong as the others arrive, bringing lots of ammunition and badassery to the island. Also, in case you were wondering what the extended version of the film added, here you go, a scene where they're attacked by a Ferrocutus, explaining how this group seemingly gets smaller with each new scene we see them in. It's a good scene and adds more to the island, showing how even the herbivores are a threat. I also find it funny how quickly they get attacked, like they spend no more than 5 minutes on the island, and they've already lost like 10 guys. Oh, and also that. Eventually, the Ferrocutus gets taken out, and Carl pays his respects by filming the dead dino. Nice. We meet back up with Anne, being carried and, I guess, yelled at by Kong, who just ends up looking like a character spamming the same emote, just flinging his arm back and forth again and again. Okay, buddy. I'm assuming it's to show how lonely Kong is, so he doesn't really know how to interact with anyone, as most people he meets are sacrifices, and thus treats them like rag dolls for his entertainment. So when Anne shows she's more than that and not just gonna be a sacrifice, he ends up having some respect for her and saving her. Kong hears the others searching and leaves, leaving the group to find the other sacrifices I mentioned, as they continue searching for her. Also, it turns out Jimmy snuck onto the group, which pisses off Hayes, but, you know, character stuff. Jimmy wants to bring her back. It doesn't really matter. I don't think they talk once, besides like one part at the boat when they're dancing, but that's not really talking. I guess dancing is a way of communicating in its own. Just, the point is they don't really have much to do in regards to each other, so this isn't really important. Anyways, they end up coming across a valley for, at least in the theatrical version, our first official dino and action sequence. While the group is quenching their thirst, Carl, Herb, and Bruce are still making the film, shooting some pretty cool looking brontosaurus. Wish we got to see more of this. I really like the island, as do most people who watch this film, and all its inhabitants. It's a shame this lasts for like 30 seconds before some Venatosaurs come and wreck shit up. Now, despite these dinosaurs supposedly being evolved versions of velociraptors, just like in Jurassic Park, they're more akin to Deinonychus in their bone structure and size. However, we get a pretty decent action sequence as the group runs away from a brontosaurus stampede, with some pretty good special effects. That is, until the humans are near the dinos and some fake-ass shadows have to be added in. They always look fake, and the Olympic-style stamina of some of these guys, especially Stumpy, who is literally smoking a cigarette while running, just lessens the realism. It's still a cool scene filled with action and cool-looking dinosaurs, and hell, even Bruce gets in on the action. Not for long though, as he's not cut out for this. And it looks like the CGI artists aren't cut out for this, cause wow does that look bad. Not really gonna blame them, as they might have had time constraints. Things have to be changed around a lot in Hollywood blockbusters, but yeah, kinda bad. Anyways, Herb gets eaten and the others end up leaving, well, some of them, including Bruce, but don't worry, he'll be back. Back with Anne, she tries sneaking away but ends up having to dance, entertaining Kong until she stops, with him being confused. Like I said earlier, usually the sacrifices try to entertain him, so to see this one actually stop and have boundaries definitely challenges him and makes for some really good back and forth, despite neither speaking the same language. It's all in Andy Serkis's face as Kong. He does an immense job and brings him to life, making him feel real but not too cartoonish or over the top, like an actual gorilla, if it were 25 feet tall. Back with the group, they get attacked by some hydroskimics, at least I think, along with a piranodon in a pretty cool scene, although one obviously unfinished. The swamp looks too clean for it to be real, but again, it's a cool scene that adds more to the island that Kong resides on. It also again explains why the group gets smaller each scene, as if you watch the theatrical cut, it goes like this. The main group tries to find Anne, but Carl sees her get taken. Then they go off and enter the island at night, It cuts to briefly where they're walking around and Lumpy shoots an insect before getting the brontosaurus scene. After that, we get a brief moment near the swamp, but after that they enter the log area right above the pit, and somehow like half the team has died. This scene is necessary in explaining so. Plus, after that log scene, it's the pit scene, and then the group captures Kong and flees the island. It's really quick if you just watch the theatrical version. It doesn't know how that's taken so long to get to this point, but yeah. Meanwhile, the extended cut has him enter the island, get attacked by the Ferracutus, walk around a bit, then get the brontosaurus scene and the moment by the swamp, get attacked in the swamp, enter the log area, and then get thrown into and escape the cave, or the pit, then capture Kong and leave. It feels a little bit more substantial and more of a journey than in the theatrical cut. Anyways, back to the scene, Choi and Lumpy get thrown overboard, with Lumpy saving him, and Jack almost has a run-in with the Pteranodon before being saved by some tree roots. During this, Carl is either telling others to keep the camera or filming with it, which, while being an asshole thing to do, as he isn't helping, makes sense. I mean, nobody's gonna believe they all got attacked by some prehistoric monsters unless there's proof. And this is the proof. But I love how he doesn't give a shit about Preston as soon as he gets the camera. It's really funny for some reason. What an asshole. They continue and almost find Anne, but end up seeing a Brutornis that's been fatally injured from Lumpy, who then puts it out of his misery. However, it may have been good that he unintentionally shot it before, as apparently he was maybe hunting them down. So yeah, literally everything on this island wants to kill you. Even this Gallimimus ostrich-looking things that are apparently the largest avian carnivores of the lowland plains. They eventually come across Kong near a log overlooking the pit I mentioned earlier, where Hayes tries shooting Kong, sacrificing himself. However, it does nothing. It starts throwing the guys off the log, and I'm gonna be honest, y'all had a lot of time to leave, so this one's on you. However, Preston manages to land a bit higher than the others, so he's out for the next scene with them. However, they're all out of this next scene because it's finally back to Anne and her adventures, like being chased by a photodon into a log, until it gets eaten and a bunch of millipedes start caressing her. Like, damn, I know it's Naomi Watts, but control yourselves. She goes out to see what ate the photodon, a Vastosaurus Rex, or in other words, a evolved T-Rex that will get reused a bajillion times whenever a stock dinosaur image was needed for a video, a shitty low-budget movie and its poster, or something in between. Either way, we get a good scene, minus some dodgy effects, of Anne outrunning the dino until another one shows up with some pretty cool sound effects. I like the noise of his jaws snapping shut. It's a nice addition and just sounds kinda cool. Kong also joins and starts a fight with another Vastosaurus Rex joining in for a 3-on-1 in a scene I'm sure you all remember. Hell, it's the most viewed video on Universal Pictures' YouTube channel. One gets crushed by a rock and another beaten on some vines as the last is saved for an especially brutal end, having its jaw torn and its head just caved in. I do gotta appreciate just how animal-like Kong is in this scene, something the later movies lost. It adds a whole lot of realism and makes it feel unique. However, Kong is a little sour considering all this happened because Anne left, but he eventually forgives her, taking her back as we cut back to the group in the cave in the best scene of the movie by far. The lack of a soundtrack that's really loud, with it being toned down a whole lot more, coupled with how bleak it is, makes it all the more horrifying. Carl's lost his camera, so all of this was for nothing. Choi is dead, and all these parasitic monsters, that are mostly just common insects beefed up, are inching closer and closer, trying to kill them all. There's no hope for them. They are where the damned go to die. In the sewers of this place, with Carnictus serving as the icing to this cake of oh shit, taking out Lumpy with it. It's frightening as well to see that as soon as the flare goes out, it just becomes worse, as it was some sort of defense mechanism, where they're then placed in a scene where they really have no way of surviving. They are genuinely outmatched by these bottom-feeding dwellers of this horrific world they're not welcome in. Despite that, they do end up getting saved by Bruce, Englehorn, Preston, and a whole lot of other guys, bringing them back up as Jack continues to search for Anne, with Carl promising to keep the gates open, the gate that they entered the island in where Anne was sacrificed earlier. Oh, and between this, we briefly see a Ferracutus in an ancient temple. Wish we saw more of that, but I guess that's what a good movie does, makes you want more. Back with Kong, we see his family, which just shows you how alone he is, as he doesn't have any alive still. Anne tries her theater tricks, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, he'll still die alone. The last of his kind, on a world that's canonically sinking at an alarming rate. However, Anne teaches him the word beautiful in a scene with an elegant sunset, the last Kong will ever get to see. Jack eventually finds her, but Kong wakes up, alerting some stinky winky bats in another awesome action scene, even though the part where Jack and Anne rides one down is kinda goofy. Also, I'm pretty sure they canonically shit on themselves as to repel predators, a thing I feel like would actually exist in the animal kingdom. Kong ends up following them to the gate, which is closed because Carl's a conniving cockroach. However, Preston opens it early, slashing his face as the two escape, with Kong being caught and chloroformed after a lengthy sequence. killing off some more of the crew. Kong gets taken to New York, and we still have almost 50 minutes left. Holy hell, this movie's long. Okay, so Bruce is there too. He takes credit for everything that's happened, because of course. Carl sees Preston, who's initially happy, but changes his face to that of one who's seen everything what's happened so far. How Carl's alienated everyone he knew and gotten dozens killed. His pursuit of something real has made everyone realize he's fake. A backstabbing asshole willing to get others hurt just to save himself and make a quick buck. A product of his time, born out of the spite and greed to sell an animal to the public. Not Kong himself, but the idea, without the soul. Gold made as common as silver. Jack's also got his play written and on the stage, something he mentioned earlier in a scene I skipped over, but he ends up going to Kong, anyways, the Kong show. After some of the show is done, Kong eventually escapes after seeing someone who looks a little like Anne, but not her, pissing him off as he chases Jack through the downtown, until finding her. They have a nice scene in an ice rink that actually is really peaceful. Nice to see a change of pace, let things slow down for a minute, letting them enjoy each other's company, continuing their relationship in this film. Until the military arrives shooting at them. Also gotta love these guys hyping themselves up, only to be pummeled by Kong before they can even fire a shot. Eventually, he goes on top of the Empire State Building, and fights the planes, giving one last roar as he knows he's a king out of his throne, thrust into a world too strong and uncaring for someone like him. A loner who just wanted someone, just about to be killed. And that's what happens. As hauntingly sad as it is, there was no better alternative. He couldn't live the last of his kind, he couldn't live with Anne. It just wouldn't work. It was never meant to be. It's just unfortunate that Kong realized that all too late. But hey, on the upside, Carl managed to minorly help the economy for a bit, and that was Peter Jackson's King Kong. Pretty epic in every sense of the word. It's long, some might say too long, with its characters feeling overpopulated with few traits, minus Carl and some others. And its CGI can be a bit wonky at times, but if you fully immerse yourself into the experience and get over the slightly tiring first act, you'll get an enjoyable ride. Hell, even some of the boat stuff is cool and adds character. The film in general picks up when they reach Skull Island, with several well choreographed and written action and horror scenes that feel appropriately PG-13, not too toned down or too much and over the top. The sets are also amazing and genuinely feel like you're there, most of the time. When the dinosaurs start interacting with the humans, it loses that for a bit, but for the rest of it, it looks pretty marvelous. You could tell everyone cared about making this film, and it shows. There's an endless amount of love in every shot, and even some of the character interactions, fleshing them out to make us care about them, especially in regards to Anne and Kong's relationship, which is actually shorter than I thought, but not in a bad way. It's so compactly done that you feel like it's longer because of how important each scene and each interaction is. Even the action scenes genuinely mean something for the characters and add something new to the conversations and how they interact. With the group of expendable humans, not as much, but Anne and Kong make this film a genuine treat to watch, with Kong adding some much needed humanity to this rather bleak and dark film. Overall, it's pretty good, even great, and I think you'll like it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'm glad, but if you didn't, feel free to tell me how I can improve it, as it helps a lot. You can follow me on my socials and like and subscribe to show your support and help these videos in the algorithm and get more people to see it. Because I hope people like this and I hope more people get to see it and watch my videos and watch my older videos as well. I hope you have a great day and great rest of life, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.